Tell me something. I know you as the stock guy, but what's your name? What's your full name?
Well, my name's Jason. I don't really use it much because
Okay.
it's just weird with the way the stream goes to have your first name.
All right. So I should just call you Jason or call you the stock guy if I'm saying
Whatever,
something.
whatever's comfortable for you. Because honestly, it's this is more about you than it is about me. We just really
All
wanted
right.
to get to talk to you. So, for those who don't know, do you prefer is it Khanna, correct?
Yeah, but you can call me Ro.
Okay, all right. My wife, like I said, my wife's Punjabi, so she corrected me. She said that's not how you pronounce it. I said if that's what he goes by, that's what I go by. All right, so you and I actually had a little of an exchange on Twitter, and that's how we got to know each other. And was like, okay, well, how about we hop on this call and talk some nuts and bolts about some of these issues because I think my audience likes to hear directly from the source about a lot of things that are going on. And
Yeah, great.
yeah,
I'm looking forward to it.
so if
Not
you,
just a Punjabi wife. I follow your stuff on social and looking forward to the conversation.
yeah, I'm going to need some tips after stream to help me out with that one. But if you'd like to introduce yourself and like some of your
Sure.
background, it'd be great because these guys would love to hear about it.
Well, I'm Ro Khanna, and my parents are immigrants from India. My grandfather spent 4 years in jail as part of Gandhi's independence movement, fighting for India's independence. That's what inspired me. My parents came here in the 1960s. I was born in Philadelphia, our bicentenary in 1976. Grew up in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. A tough loss for the Phillies to the Dodgers recently. I was hopeful for that. And then after school, moved out to Silicon Valley and now represent Silicon Valley in Congress. It's an extraordinary district. Apple, Google, and Tesla, Broadcom, NVIDIA, all in my district. Probably the wealthiest district in the world and leading the AI revolution. And I've been focused on economic patriotism, and that is that we've got to tackle the economic divides that are tearing this country apart. We need to figure out how do we make the economic success of regions that were left out of globalization and families that aren't getting a fair shake our highest priority. We should be taxing some of the billionaires in my district so we can provide childcare, education, healthcare, housing for Americans. And we've got to create economic activity and job opportunities in every part of the country. So that's been, in a nutshell, what I stand for.
Do you find that there's any conflict or of interest or like difficulties for you, being that you represent some of the like you said, the region that all of these major corporations are out of, and yet this is something that you're kind of focusing on, but that's your biggest hurdle? Like how do you manage that?
Every day there's tension. I mean, that's the biggest tension because I represent this extraordinary wealthy area of technology. And I say, look, I'm for innovation. The three people who got the Nobel Prize today in economics all talked about how innovation technology leads to economic growth, how culture needs to be open to new ideas to have economic growth. So I obviously believe in innovation and technology, but I think that the fundamental problem in the country is income inequality and the economic divides. So, for example, I'm for a billionaire tax and a tax on people over 100 million. And that's something that people in Silicon Valley don't agree with. But, I say, if we don't have this, you're not going to be able to support healthcare and childcare and jobs for people. I call it the anti-revolution tax. Another area is I've championed the Internet Bill of Rights. I think it's crazy that these social media companies can get all the data on us and then have algorithms that make us hate each other. So there are places that there's obviously tension, but I fundamentally believe that we need to have investment in communities from these technology companies to create the tech trades, next generation of jobs. And we can't just wish away the modern economy. It's not going anywhere. Anywhere. We need to figure out how do we get people participating and succeeding in that economy.
On the billionaire tax that you were talking about, I hear a lot about the billionaire tax, and I understand a lot of where that's coming from. And I'm often a person who says, if you want to tax them, it's good, but you have to also get your spending under order, because if you tax them and you don't cut spending, you really kind of defeat the purpose. But one thing that I'm often very vocal about is just putting a tax on them, it seems like with the way Congress moves, that's almost never going to happen. And even if you do like an income tax, there's ways of doing it. Why do we never really hear about the loopholes? Like, for example, the borrowing against equities at, which is not taxable, or the GRAT, trusts where people are allowed to do the annuity to pass it on. Like, I feel like, why is it we never hear about the actionable things that could actually get where that money's going, as opposed to just the raise taxes or put a tax?
I think both are absolutely correct. I've called for actually taxing as a realized event when someone borrows against their estate. So, what happens is you're a billionaire, you borrow a $10 million, $50 million from the bank lends it to you because you have all these assets, and then you live off that and you never have realized income. And I've said when you borrow, that should be realized income, and you should be taxed on that. And that should be a realization event. And that's something that we could get past. I also think we need to have a step up in basis when you give money to your kids, right? Like, so you buy Facebook stock, it's worth $1, it goes up to $100, and then you give it to your kids. Well, when they get it after your death, they don't have to pay the capital appreciation from $1 to $100. They just get it at $100. Well, no one paid the capital appreciation. That's not fair. So I have to step up in basis. So there are technical fixes that could raise more revenue. But I think when people say a wealth tax, let's get 2 to 3% on these billionaires or people over 100 million, it's just expressing the anger that they're not paying enough tax. The details of it, we can talk about the concrete ideas, two of which you mentioned.
Yeah. Actually, speaking of which, from your district, NVIDIA CEO, very famous for doing that for his kids. He's used the GRAT as a way of basically giving his children, I think, saving $7 billion worth of paying taxes because he used that loophole. So he was able to
What exactly is the GRAT? So that's not the capital gains step up in basis. Explain to me what.
So it's basically a way that you could take assets, put them into a trust, pays out an annuity, as long as you keep it, up to the IRS tax level, and then the original amount you put in goes back to the person who put it in. The beneficiary then gets to keep the rest of the remaining tax free.
They don't pay any tax on it. Okay.
Outside of whatever the IRS tax rate is, the 7% or whatever. Outside of that, there's no inheritance tax. There's nothing like that. It's a loophole.
Yeah, so we try to close that loophole, and it's called a GRAT.
Yeah, it's a GRAT. So it's the exact.
I'm going to look it up after this because I think that I've talked about the step up in basis and I've talked about the realization, but I think after this I'm going to look it up. And I know Jensen Huang and he's obviously a great immigrant entrepreneurial story, but he should pay tax on that money. I mean that and there should be an inheritance tax. That's the way the system is set up. That doesn't mean he didn't do a great company and we don't want his company to succeed. And that's why I call myself a progressive capitalist, which is I have no problem with Jensen Huang. I have no problem with him becoming a billionaire. I have no problem giving money to his kids and his grandkids and setting his family up for generations. And he can do that while paying a wealth tax and an inheritance.
And the old saying is don't hate the player, hate the game, right? It's like he's just using the system. So the way that, like I said, the grantor retained annuity trust, the GRAT, this is kind of something we're seeing how so much of the wealth that, we raise estate taxes, we do all this, but it doesn't seem to have an effect because there's loopholes like this where you can legitimately put these things in, pay a small amount, get the annuity, get the retained back, and then you're inherent, you don't pay anything. So I think his, not to put him on blast, but it's just because he has the biggest one, I think his kids are going to save out on $7 to $10 billion in taxes paid because of NVIDIA stock since then. So I just thought that was something interesting because, again, I like to hear you seem to be doing it with a lot of your bills about actionable things rather than just this, put out this.
I'm going to look up this grantor return annuity trust because I honestly hadn't studied that, but this is why I do these types of conversations. We do have things on the realization of loans on the billions, and we do have things on the on step up of capital base of the basis. But there are a bunch of these things we can do to increase revenue. Now you said, what about the spending side? First of all, it's important to understand that we are a low tax country. I know that sounds defiant to political rhetoric, but in the OECD, which is basically all the European countries and Western democracies, We are number 2 in the lowest tax place. We don't tax wealth nearly where other countries do. But so we can increase those taxes with some of the ideas you've been saying, but we can also decrease spending. Where can we decrease spending? We don't need over $1 trillion Pentagon budget, 56% of defense for a legacy industry, when a lot of the fighting in Ukraine and the fighting in the Pacific is going to need attritable drones and submarines and autonomous vehicles and autonomous ships. We have a legacy industry which is going to defense contractors. Musk actually disrupted it with SpaceX, with Lockheed and Boeing. We can disrupt a lot more of the Pentagon, lower spending there. We can eliminate fossil fuel subsidies. The Medicare Advantage is ripping off the American people. They basically are saying people are sicker than they are, and they're charging billions. Not just me, it's documented. And conservatives talk about this as well. Those are 3 places that we can cut spending. There are a lot of duplicative agencies. But I put out a plan for people who want to Google it that lowers the debt by $12 trillion over 10 years. It brings the deficits down under 4% of GDP, where we need to be on peacetime. And it has very specific revenue increases through taxes and spending cuts. People can disagree with it, but I feel like every member of Congress of the 435 should put out their plan of how they're going to actually get the math to work.